Hey everyone, JL here, and welcome back to Bridge the Divide. Today, we're going to take a look at Pastor John MacArthur. Now, if that name isn't familiar to you, he's actually a pretty big deal in theist circles. Old MacArthur has been the leader of the non-denominational Grace Community Church, which is a mega-church in Sun Valley, California since 1969. MacArthur also has an internationally syndicated radio and television program called Grace to You. He's written or edited more than 150 books, notably the MacArthur Study Bible, has released several albums, and is generally considered one of the most influential preachers of all time. And it certainly shows. Over the course of his life, he's amassed a personal net worth of around $20 million. He's the head of a religious education media empire with assets totaling over $130 million and generating over $70 million a year in tax-free revenue. All of this is, of course, on top of his six-figure salary doing part-time broadcast work for Grace to You, his six-figure salary from the Master's University and Seminary, book royalties, speaking fees, and his YouTube channel. Now, it's quite good that he's been so successful because running a megachurch does not come cheap. And neither does the 3 luxury homes he owns, which, when combined, valuate in the millions. Not too shabby for a pastor who has long preached against, to quote MacArthur himself from selected scriptures, the greed cults of the New Testament era. But this video is not about the hypocrisy of John MacArthur as he rides his followers' bank accounts to 1,000-count Egyptian cotton sheets. It's not about his homophobic, transphobic, racist, or misogynistic views. It's not even about his ignorance of current science, nor his ineptitude when it comes to describing any science to his followers. This video is about the lie, the ignorance, and the fear that MacArthur perpetuates. The lie that oppositional thinking is anathema, that the Bible knows more than all of modern academia and science combined, and his fear that such thinking amongst his congregation could damage his continued access to million-dollar homes and 1,000-count Egyptian cotton sheets. So let's take a look at how MacArthur presents what initially would be some excellent points, but then quickly descends into complete madness as he twists what humanity's most educated minds demand of us into the machinations of an evil world bent on dragging us all straight to hell. Oh, and before we get started, I must tell you that I've cut to the important parts in MacArthur's video, which is titled Watch and Share Before It's Deleted, because, with all honesty, the man speaks like a Zootopian sloth, and many of my audience happen to listen to me while they're driving. I have, however, provided a link to the uncut video, just in case any of you need an organic sleep aid later tonight. So, with your safety in mind, let's dive in.
I was at camp this week with 1,000 teenagers over in New Mexico, and the seniors from Grace Church got together and wanted to have a question and answer session. It was wonderful. I love doing it. And perhaps the most telling question came from, these are high school seniors. They said, what do we need to know facing university, facing college, going forward? What protections should we have? And I said, you need 2 things. 2 things, without which you will be a victim of the world. Number 1, you need conviction.
I actually don't disagree with him here. You do need convictions. And more importantly, you need the courage of your convictions.
You have to have some non-negotiables. You have to have some hills you die on.
I think everyone would agree with this. It's actually sage advice.
And you have to know why, and you have to be able to substantiate those in the Word of God and in your own conscience.
Well, he's only half wrong here. You absolutely do need to be able to substantiate your convictions. Not so much in the Word of God, but at the bare minimum to yourself, with honesty.
Without convictions, you're a cork in the surf. You'll end up wherever they take you.
More sound advice. Gotta give him that.
And what a blessing to have been, for most of them, brought up in the influences of Grace Community Church, where they have those convictions from those who surround them here.
Oops, so close. Just had to get that reaffirming plug in there, didn't you? Oh, MacArthur, you sly dog.
Your convictions are the immovable pillars of your character. They're the structure.
You know, aside from the subjective God stuff, he's kind of making a lot of sense, right?
Because what they're going to want to do in the university is crush those convictions.
Well, that didn't last long.
Because they're biblical convictions and they're true, and the world is ungodly, and the world is run by Satan, who's a liar.
If it's not too much trouble, could I get a side of evidence to go with that positive claim?
They're going to attack you with lies.
If anyone is wondering what lies he happens to be referring to here, it's most likely the one that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Yeah, that's right. He's a young Earth creationist too.
And they're going to attack your convictions about God, about man, about sin, about righteousness, about conduct, about morality, about everything.
And here is lie number one. MacArthur is referring to collegiate education as lies because often the results of collegiate educations lead people away from the church. This is because the professors in university courses often ask difficult questions that religious leaders either choose not to ask, don't know how to ask, or are woefully unprepared to even deal with. University courses often provide access to schools of thought, logic, science, and philosophy that range from mildly different to directly contradictory of what many church-raised kids are taught in both their homes and during congregation. MacArthur presents this higher learning as nothing but lies because ultimately it poses a direct threat to his bottom line.
Second thing you have to have is critical thinking.
I actually agree with this as well. You do need critical thinking, and I personally was unprepared for the level of critical thinking that I would need when I first arrived at college. It was a hard lesson learned, but I learned it. It's one of the primary reasons that I'm an atheist.
And I think for this particular period of history, this is what is most under attack. And let me tell you how to look at that. Universities these days, certainly in the humanities side of things, universities these days are concerned about ideologies. You hear a lot about that.
This is misleading. Certain university courses do present competing ideologies to students, none more prevalently than in philosophy. But universities don't market in telling people what to believe. They market in laying out all the information available and then teaching the student how to analyze that information and come to their own intellectually honest conclusions.
An ideology. Well, what do they mean by an ideology? It's just another word for a philosophy.
This is a bad statement, and I'll try to quickly break down why it is. Philosophy is the study of knowledge. Ideology is the study of ideas. Philosophy allows discussion to understand different truths and respects everyone's thinking. Ideology does not encourage discussion if there is any sort of differences in thinking. Philosophy is affected by surroundings and people. Ideology affects society and its thinking. Philosophy naturally evolves over time. Changing an ideology is exceedingly difficult. And most importantly, philosophy does not have any direct relation with ideologies, but ideologies are made up of different philosophies. I honestly couldn't tell if this statement was made out of ignorance of the difference between a philosophy and an ideology, or if MacArthur was being deliberately dishonest. I will, of course, let you decide.
But ideologies in the current climate are seductive and attractive to people because they are mindless.
Kind of like indoctrinated religious thinking, wouldn't you say?
Here's how an ideology works. What's wrong in America? White privilege.
Well, he's not wrong. But the irony of a rich white pastor who denounces women in leadership roles while he fleeces his followers for luxury homes under the auspices of talking to God, citing white privilege as a problem in America, is not lost on me.
What's wrong in America? Systemic racism.
Agreed. This is also a major issue that deserves discussion at the highest levels.
What's wrong in America? Abuse of women.
Damn. As on point as he is, I'm kind of afraid of where this is going.
They want you to buy into the fact that everything that's wrong in America can be explained by an ideology.
Well, that's because they can be. Ideologies are represented by the groups of people that hold them. Wealth gaps and elitism, ageism, imbalanced leadership roles, discrimination in employment, jobs and housing, and rape culture. These are all evidence that there are powerful groups of people in this nation that hold these gruesome ideologies that continue to perpetuate these nightmare sociological issues.
They don't want you to think critically about it.
They do. That's why we bring them up.
What's wrong in America? Some people have money and others don't.
That has got to be the most reductive representation of the deep-seated economic issues this nation faces between social classes that I have ever heard.
What's wrong in America? Corporations are getting rich and people are being abused.
Also not wrong. When CEOs make upwards of 600% more than their ground floor employees, who they then classify as part-time so as to avoid offering them health care, something has definitely gone awry.
What's wrong in America? It can be reduced to an ideology, a simple single idea. This is stupidity.
And here comes line number 2.
And universities are really bent on teaching people to be stupid.
Agenda confirmed. Education makes you stupid. Funny how you only hear such sentiment from religious leaders banking on your ignorance for their bottom lines, and not from, say, employers banking the salary they'll pay you on your complete understanding of the particular job in that field.
This is infantile.
They actually applauded that shit. Hook, line, and sinker.
You can't say what's wrong in America and it's systemic racism, no matter what it is. If the bus doesn't show up on your corner on time, well, it's systemic racism.
And now we've descended into the third circle of total absurdity.
If you have mold on your bread, well, systemic racism. That's the stupidity of that oversimplification of everything that is easy for people to suck up and be seduced by because it's a one-size-fits-all answer to everything, and you can put your brain in a bag and bury it.
And here's line number 3. No, universities do not make a business out of teaching people what to think, only how to think. I myself have learned from many professors of philosophy, psychology, sociology, and the humanities, and none have ever taught that one ideology was a catch-all for the world's problems. To assert that universities have this nefarious agenda is spun out of whole cloth. But there is a hint of projection here, seeing as how MacArthur made his millions on telling his followers that his particular hermeneutics, or interpretations of the Bible, are the correct ones and all others are wrong. Sounds like old MacArthur needs to freshen up on the ice cube hermeneutic of Matthew 7:5. Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
You have to think critically.
Just so long as it's the way MacArthur wants you to.
You have to understand. For example, give you an illustration. In the United States, 99.9% of the population survives COVID.
Surprise, he's one of those too. And including denying that, he then spends the next 2 minutes of this video denying the election results, the Russia probe, the Mueller investigation, Dr. Fauci, the World Health Organization, and the CDC. So, for the sake of the algorithm and my freshly monetized channel, this is where I will end this look at John MacArthur of Grace to You and his ignorant, fear-based, bottom-line fueled indoctrination of his followers. Hopefully, some of them will actually get those college educations, start asking the harder questions, and begin to see this old con man for what he really is. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell for notifications. And if you'd like, feel free to leave a comment. I love interacting with all of you, regardless of personal philosophy or ideology. Also, if you dig scary movies, you can watch me and my filmmaker friends as we deep dive the movies that haunt your dreams every week on the Week in Horror podcast. All the links you need are in the description. And lastly, thank you to everyone who helped me grow my channel so that I could reach this first huge milestone. Thank you again for watching, and as always, be safe, be excellent to each other. I'll see you next time.